How dark is the path of a man when he reaches the new world, the world in between? Beyond us there is unending darkness. Where is this beyond? Probably deep in ourselves. Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video I will be discussing the third volume of Carl Jung's Black Books, which is this one. And just as a general introduction, the Black Books, they consist of 7 volumes written by Carl Jung between 1913 and 1932. They were not available to the general public until the end of 2020, when the editor, Sonu Shamdasani, published an edited edition, including an introduction to the Black Books as well. And as the editor indicated at the back of the book set, they were the most important unpublished work written by Carl Jung up until that point. And in this series of 7 videos I will attempt to analyze, summarize and discuss each volume separately. And in case you've missed the discussion on the first and the second volume, I will link to them on your screen right now as well. And if you do not want to miss the future volumes, then please also consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, which I like to make videos on Carl Jung as well as some other really interesting authors and philosophers. So throughout the second volume of the Black Books, Carl Jung illustrated the challenges which he had to face during the exploration of his own unconscious. Throughout the second volume, we can see Carl Jung make a clear move away from knowledge and reason into the direction of the mystic and the role of the unconscious. This transition was not easy to make for Carl Jung, and we can clearly see him struggle with the realization that such a transition is what is required of him. He wrote, "But our knowledge, does our knowledge also not hold good for you? What is it going to be if not knowledge? Where is security, where is ground, where is firm land, where is light?" And this transition continues throughout volume 3 of the Black Books, and eventually we can see that Carl Jung accepts that there exist 2 kinds of truths. Thereby he embraces both worlds simultaneously, the world of the conscious and the world of the unconscious. Therefore, at the end of the second volume of the Black Books, Carl Jung accepts the challenge to investigate the truths hidden within the world of the unconscious. He wrote, "But I am willing, because the divine light shines bright for us in the greatest darkness. How shall I ever walk under your sun, if I do not drink the nightly bitter draught of slumber to the lees? Help me so that I do not choke on my own knowledge." And at the beginning of the third volume, after a decision was made to overcome the challenges discussed throughout the second volume, Carl Jung, he continues the investigation of the world of the unconscious. He came to the realization that his soul, besides residing in a different world, also has her own will. He wrote, "I forgot that I had reached a new world, which had been alien to me previously. I see neither way nor bridge. What I believed about the soul has to become true here, namely that she knows her own way better, and that no intention can prescribe a better one for her." As a result of this realization, Carl Jung had to forego on the scientific proofs upon which he relied heavily up until that point. He wrote, "I feel that a large chunk of science has been broken off. I suppose it might be like this, for the sake of the soul and her life." Carl Jung, he words that no one would benefit from these unscientific research which he was conducting. He wrote, "I find the thought that this must occur only for me agonizing, and that perhaps no one will gain insight from my work, but my soul demands this achievement." Interestingly, however, as Carl Jung himself later indicated as well, all of his most important and influential ideas, which are widely known to us today, they actually sprung from this research of the world of the soul. And later on in this video I will also give a clear example of one of these ideas. So, despite this agonizing thought that no one would actually benefit from his work, Carl Jung, he continued his adventure. He compared himself to early Christian anchorites who withdrew from society for the sake of a certain calling. He wrote, "They came to the most relentless conclusions with regard to the psychological necessity of their time. They left wife and child, wealth, glory and science, and turned towards the desert for God's sake. So be it." Jung ventured into his own desert and he realized how dark it was actually. He wrote, "How dark is the path of a man when he reaches the new world, the world in between. Beyond us there is unending darkness. Where is this beyond? Probably deep in ourselves. However, eventually Carl Jung, he started to encounter certain characters throughout his explorations, and one of these characters is Izdubar, who is now best known as Gilgamesh. And the large part of the third volume of the Black Books is dedicated to the interaction which Carl Jung had with Izdubar, and this interaction clearly illustrates the distance between the world of the conscious and the world of the unconscious. At the beginning of this interaction, Izdubar is struck by the horrific scientific truths which Carl Jung shares with him. For example, that the Earth is round and that the Sun is a part of our solar system. And he wrote, "O Izdubar, most powerful one, what you call poison is science. In our country, we are nurtured on it from youth, and that may be one reason why we haven't properly flourished and remain so dwarfish. When I see you, however, it seems to me that if we are all somewhat poisoned." And these truths shared by Carl Jung with Izdubar, they contradict exactly the truths which Izdubar had heard from the priests of his world. And he argues that the truths of his priests, they are not poisonous, unlike the truths which Carl Jung shares. So Izdubar argued, "You call poison truth? Is poison truth, or is truth poison? Do not our astrologers and priests also speak the truth? And yet theirs does not act like poison." And after discussing back and forth, they conclude that there must be two kinds of truths, one coming from the observation of the external world, and another one stemming from the exploration of the internal world. So Carl Jung wrote, "Our truth is that which comes to us from the knowledge of outer things. The truth of your priest is that which comes to you from inner things of the human spirit. Moreover, however, these poisonous truths of the external world, they have been so horrific to Izdubar that he is severely lamed by them. And Carl Jung, he claims that we humans have no choice but to accept the truths of the external world, and if we do not do so, they might eventually overwhelm us as well, and we ourselves will be equally lamed as Izdubar is." So he wrote, "Now you perhaps see that we had no choice. We have to swallow the poison of science. Otherwise we meet the same fate as you have. We will be completely lamed if we encounter it unsuspecting and unprepared. This poison is so insurmountably strong that everyone, even the strongest and even the eternal gods, perish because of it." And I believe that this connects nicely to a previous video which I've made on Nietzsche's idea of the death of God, which, to summarize it shortly, is that we have killed God and we have thereby also killed our connection to the other more spiritual world, because we no longer believe in God. And this conversation between Carl Jung and Izdubar, this illustrates this idea further. So Izdubar, he argued, "Have you no gods anymore? No, words are all we have left. But are these words powerful? So they claim, but one notices nothing of this. We do not see the gods either, and yet we believe that they exist, that we recognize their workings in natural events. Science has taken from us the capacity to believe. What? You have lost that too? How then do you believe? We live so, with one foot in the hot and one foot in the cold, and for the rest, come what may. You express yourself darkly. So it also is with us. It is dark. Can you bear it?" In relation to this discussion, Carl Jung makes an interesting point. According to Jung, scientific truths poisonous to the figure of Izdubar, they can be problematic for us as well. This is the case because the possibilities of our conscious world, they have become limitless, and we risk being swallowed up by the immense variety of possibilities. He wrote, "Just as the concrete world has expanded from the limitedness of the ancient outlook to the immeasurable diversity of a modern outlook, the world of intellectual possibilities has developed to unfathomable diversity." As a result, Carl Jung indicated that no one will be able to grasp the entire path of life any longer, and only specialists will be able to exist. He wrote, "Infinitely long paths, paved with thousands of thick volumes, lead from one specialization to another. Soon no one will be able to walk down these paths anymore, and then only specialists will remain. Instead of these specializations, Jung suggested that we need an overarching thing or principle that is capable to give guidance to the mind during such a time of limitless possibilities." He wrote, "Our time requires something capable of regulating the mind. More than ever, we require the living truth of the life of the mind. of something capable of providing firm guidance. And Nietzsche, in his book The Gay Science, he made a similar argument. He wrote, we have given things a new color. We go on painting them continually. But what do all our efforts to date avail when we hold them against the colored splendor of that old master, ancient humanity? One of these aspects of life for which our mind requires guidance, according to Jung, is the existence of evil. Science has not yet proven a match against the existence of evil, and perhaps it can even be argued that science has resulted in more evil in some ways. At the end of the third volume of the Black Books, Carl Jung observed that he had been paying too little attention to evil as well, even though it's an equally important aspect of life. He wrote, "Evil, I thought too little about evil. Evil exists too. Evil, the abysmal evil, is not to be forgotten. There's no scientific cover-up for it. Even the word evil is commonplace, but not the thing per se." I believe that this discussion of evil was the source for one of Jung's most famous ideas, which is finding that which you need the most at the places where you least want to look. He wrote, "Here lies an inner reluctance. What is it I do not want to see?" With this idea in mind, Carl Jung decides to venture into this valley of which he was so afraid. And in this valley he finds a dead girl who is missing her head. And suddenly another figure appears within this imagination of Jung, who addresses him and wants to know what Jung makes of the sight. And the following conversation ensues. She asks me quietly, "What then do you say?" Carl Jung, "What should I say? This is beyond words. Do you understand this? I refuse to understand such things. I can't speak about them without becoming enraged." Why become enraged? You might as well rage every day of your life, for these and similar things occur on earth every day. Eventually the figure asks Carl Jung to take out the liver of the dead girl's body and eat it. And Carl Jung, he of course refuses at first, but the figure claims to be the soul of a dead child and argues that Carl Jung must eat the liver to help her. And after committing the act, the figure reveals herself and indicates to Carl Jung that she is his soul. "Do you recognize me? How strangely familiar you are. Who are you?" "I'm your soul." So throughout the third volume of the Black Books, some interesting conversations between Carl Jung and characters emerging from the unconscious are presented to the reader. Jung is finally able to have the interactions with his unconscious which he was seeking. He reached this point by first letting go of his reliance on scientific truths, and secondly by looking at the places where he least wanted to look. And if you're interested in how this development continues to unfold in the fourth volume, then please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel as well. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I hope to see you in the next video as well.